this year. And, I know Deshaun's had some injury issues, but, I think at 32 years old, he's kind of matured to a point where he wants to leave a legacy. He wants to go out with a Super Bowl ring. And I think Deshaun Jackson is going to have a terrific year. I may have taken him over Devontae Adams before anyone else. So that's it. I got to hop off. Good luck to you guys.
I appreciate it. Where can people find you working their masterpieces there, Ed?
Yeah, for now, footballmaven.io/Eagles or at Kratze.com. On Twitter at Kratze, Kratze. You can find me either spot.
Now, when are you going to make the breaking news here on the balance?
September 1st.
All right. We're going to hold you to that. Have a good weekend.
All right, guys.
See ya. Be safe.
See ya.
Bye.
Ed Kracz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, has been teasing us for a couple weeks. We know he's got a different gig coming up. I kind of know what it is. I don't want to get into it, so we'll just save that for another time. But September 1st, stick around for that big announcement from Ed Kracz. But still, going to be beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, Adam, I want to get your thoughts on this. I was thinking about this yesterday when I read the story and just kind of looking at things for show prep and doing things, looking at the Colts and Browns game. I really like this feel-good story by a player with the Browns that probably a lot of people aren't familiar with. And if I wasn't doing show prep and looking deeper into the storylines, I probably would have missed it as well. Damon Shihini Kohushi, I cannot say his name, so I'll freely own that. This guy talk about a guy down on your luck. He had no money. He had no leads. He wasn't invited to camp. He actually played a little tomfoolery, if you will, in his interview with the Browns. He kind of fabricated his friendship with a friend of the Browns staff that got him a tryout. Then he got invited to rookie camp. I tell you, at one point he had no place to stay, nothing. He bought a place, I believe, in a gym. Just so he could have a place to stay. And now this guy is the star in the Browns camp. We saw him light up the place here in Indianapolis. Certainly a star to watch in the preseason, and one would think he's going to get a roster spot. Talk with us a little bit about the guy with no lead, spent 2 years without playing, had no money, and 1 week until a tryout. So feel good story there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no. The guy you're referring to is Damon Sheehy Giuseppe. So he was one of the biggest surprises of the camp. He runs a 4.32 40. He's crazy fast. He was actually like the Division II or Bowl subdivision, whatever they call it now. He was the leading kick returner in the country, and it's what he does, and it's what he does well. Also as a wide receiver. But yeah, he was sleeping in a Planet Fitness, outside of a Planet Fitness. He told the Brown staff he knew Alonzo Highsmith, which is what allowed him to get into the practice, which he didn't know Alonzo Highsmith, but then outperformed everybody else at the rookie minicamp. Then took in the fourth quarter of the first game, took a kickoff 86 yards to the house, and the entire team met him in the end zone. It was really cool, and more than likely, he's probably going to be our starting kick returner. There's nobody that's demonstrated in camp that they're better, and that was a spot that was vacated with the Odell trade because that was one of the roles that Jabril Peppers had. So we have a need for a specialist, and he looks like he sees the role and sees the moment, that's why we watch football.
That's right. Feel good story, absolutely. Rick Riggin, and guys, we're going to kind of merge out of our mock draft here just so we could kind of wrap things up here. Appreciate Ed Kracz joining us, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, as one of our analysts. Rick, we could continue this draft, but let's just kind of get some overall positional thoughts as we go into a draft. And you look at your draft strategy. I usually try to start with the running backs, get those lined up, wide receivers, wide receivers, tight ends, depending on that, because in a lot of ways they can play dual roles there. And then defense kickers, obviously, to the last part of my draft. When you're looking at draft strategy, Rick, what are is the advice that you would give maybe to amateur drafters, novice drafters, first-year drafters? What are your thoughts on how Neb get their strategy together for a draft?
Yeah, other than look at the bye weeks, like I mentioned earlier, Tom, I am kind of with you the way you do it. In the past, the quarterback position was kind of like that got you a bunch of points. Maybe you took a quarterback first, but I am more with the backs receivers, taking them first. But when you have a guy like Mahomes out there, you might as well just snag him up because he's looking to increase his production from last year. If he does that, I mean, holy cow. So with Mahomes out there, maybe that's a guy you would look ahead of taking backs and receivers. But your backs and receivers are your go-getters, man. They get you all the points. So I'm with you on that draft strategy. Bye weeks, obviously, and then you need to build your bench. And also, we didn't get to it yet, but I know a lot of leagues do this. Some leagues don't. But you got to pick a good defense. Defense will get you some points. It might come down, you win just by a couple points in a week, and it could come down because of the defense got a interception for a touchdown or something like that, your defense special teams. So you also want to just draft a defense. I don't know who the great defense is this year. I know the Texans are pretty solid about every year. They're always high on the board, but I'm with you, and I always pick kickers last. So I know kickers get points too, but the kickers always just get shoved down to the bottom of the list.
Ain't nothing but a drunk kicker, right? Adam Gibbons.
Right.
That was Peyton Manning and who was the kicker on that?
Mike,
the guy from Kent.
Mike Vander.
That's Mike Vander. Yeah. Who cares what a drunk kicker has to say? Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning was here in town this week. Good to see him, and he was down in Evansville, down your way. Rick, what do we know about Peyton Manning? Why was he in Evansville?
Open up a new children's hospital here, part of St. Mary's Hospital, Tom. I know you're from around here. You're familiar with St. Mary's Hospital. They're opening
That's
a new
where my son
children's
was born
hospital.
At, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, I was born at Welborn, of all places, which is still there, but I think it's part of Deaconess now. But, new children's hospital. The Peyton Manning's, I can't remember exactly what it's called, children's hospital here, connected to St. Mary's.
Adam Gibbons, Super Browns fan, appreciate you joining us. What's your draft strategy when you're putting together your draft in the real draft? I know you're part of the Balance Fantasy Football. You might be in other leagues. What's your strategy? You don't have to tip your hat too much because we do know that our draft does not happen too much. So you might want to just give us a high-level view of what your strategy is going into 2019 draft.
Sure. I think you do have to be really careful. Not overdrafting guys. Never, ever draft a quarterback in the first round unless you know that guy is going to be the MVP. And that's a really hard gamble to take. The value between quarterback 1 and quarterback 10 is so negligible that the best thing to do is just I recommend doubling down on running backs and then get a good quality receiver. In deep leagues, you've got to make sure that the people that you're getting are getting the most value. And the running back position have good depth, not great depth. The quarterback position has great depth because even bad quarterbacks can get a lot of fantasy points because they're throwing the ball a lot. A good example of that was Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles always finished top 10 in fantasy numbers because his teams were always behind. So don't overdraft a quarterback. I drafted the quarterback 1 in this or early in this situation because it's a guy like Patrick Mahomes. There's only a couple guys that you can do that early with. And in this situation, my running back position was pretty well locked down. So I don't recommend taking a quarterback early. Never take a kicker early. And Tom, make sure you don't draft the wrong Gronkowski brother.
I did that last year, too. That's funny. Way to throw it up in my face. You're off my team. Go. Get out of here. Get out of here. That was hilarious, though. I totally forgot about that. But you're all right. I dropped him like a hot potato as soon as you told me to. I was like, why is he still out there? Good stuff. Good memories. Thank you for reminding me there, Rick. There. So let's talk a little bit about Rick. We'll start with you on this. Here's the thing: draft is important. I mean, especially when you have a deep league like we do with the fantasy balance fantasy. I mean, we are full to the max, so we're deep. So you have to get your players in the draft. If you don't, you're now going to have to learn to figure out how to figure out a trade strategy. Now, a lot of people might say, "Oh, okay, well, we remember last year, a couple of years, the other guy with Kansas City, Hunt or whatever, he just lit the world fire, and everybody was trying to trade for them." It turned out to be a story with that. But a lot of times you don't want to just say, "Oh, well, they've had some good games. I want to trade. I want to get that guy," and then he just falls off and cools off. When you're trying to figure out who to trade and what to trade for and what to trade with, trade is a big strategy in fantasy football, and especially as you get later on in the season and you get closer to that trade deadline as well. And most leagues have approvals by other owners that have to approve or not approve the trade. So what are your strategy, Rick, when you're going into the trade world?
Well, I never really do many trades, but one thing I can't stand is the good teams, the guys with the good teams that are probably playoff bound in the fantasy league was trying to start poaching all the good players off all the teams that are bad in the league, and that drives me insane. And I never really got involved with it too much, but you can kind of tell early on how it's going to go. You look at Derrick Henry last year, able to trade, starting and what guys to start and what guys to bench, and I had him on my bench the entire time. And for some reason, I put him in the lineup in that game where he had like 200 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns, and that got me a huge win. But your trade strategy kind of just falls in that line. You kind of see early on how it's going with your players, and then see who you got with other teams who bite on a trade. But I don't really have a good trade strategy. I never hardly ever do. I always just stick with my team, but kind of a bad answer I gave you all the way around. I gave you like zero information to that whole answer.
All right, that's great. You gave us a perfect answer. Adam, do you have a strategy for draft?
For the trade market, I think the easiest thing to do, honestly, is I always try to look at the trade market as it's usually acts of desperation. So I sometimes try to capitalize on somebody's big week by maybe a second-tier player and look at what first-tier players aren't doing as well and see if they'll make a trade out of desperation, knowing that maybe a running back has an easier back half of the season and their front half of the season is really challenging. So they may offer me, for example, let's just say, the Browns with Nick Chubb have a really tough first half of the season. The second half is much easier. Somebody offers me Nick Chubb for a second-tier receiver or a couple third-tier receivers, something like that. That would be a deal that I would look at. Otherwise, I think, usually the people that are on the people that are actively using the trading block, it's because they didn't draft well. So my number one recommendation would be draft well, and then your trades will kind of sort themselves out.
All right, guys, we got 90 seconds left, so let's wrap it up and put a bow on it. Final word, Rick Riggin, hurry up.
Yeah, I will say that at the waiver wire is more important than trades because injuries happen during the year, and teams will put in guys at a position that you never heard of before, and they'll go off and have a huge game. You go look on the waiver wire, and nobody's even drafted them because nobody's heard of them. So look at your waiver wire. Look who's available every week and get in line on that waiver wire. That is more important to me than trades.
Absolutely. All right, Adam, we got to go. Appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, I won't say hopefully the Browns beat the Colts. They should not say that, but hopefully your Browns have a good season. We'll word it that way.
That sounds good, Tom. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, we'll talk with you soon. Rick Riggin, our official college football contributor, helping us kick off college football and helping us analyze our NFL draft. Rick, where can people find your work and your masterpieces, sir?
At Twitter right now, at Riggin_Rick. And next Saturday, Tom, college football kicks off Miami versus Florida. I cannot wait. Next Saturday,
would be the first Saturday where there's no more football. I mean, whether there's football every Saturday. However, I just worded that weird. But there's football every weekend starting next Saturday.
Real football, that's for sure. And we are going to have our official college football kickoff is next week. So